Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. It is felt essential that we may further go delving into the subject of mind, the sadr, to have a better appreciation of kinds of quloob. It is a plural of qalb. In the midst, we may see what are righteous deeds. So, sadr or mind is a big subject. But our approach is different. We see it as a knowledge system rather than a biological system. Qalb is the heart of the nafs, the spiritual being that is connected to the sadr. The relation between the two is better understood from an analogy in the Quran. It is of a man holding two forms of grapes, mainly grapes. He cultivates mainly grapes. These forms are gardens of grapes, are surrounded by date palms. In between he has field of grains. In both gardens he has a field of grains each. A river flows across the middle for watering the crops. A river flows through the middle. As has been mentioned, this individual cultivates mainly grapes in the gardens. One lies on the worldly side and the other on the spiritual side. That is the gardens. One garden is on the worldly side and he has another garden on the spiritual side. The worldly garden represents the self, the physical being, and the spiritual garden, the nafs or the spiritual being. They respectively yield varieties of worldly knowledge and spiritual knowledge. Both the gardens are maintained by the same river that flows in the middle across. The same river of Rahmah, blessed mercy. It is the flow of Rahmah or guidance of Rahmah that connects the physical being with the spiritual being. The green gardens of the material garden or the worldly garden represent desires and ambitions in the sadr, propped up with hopes and aspirations. They are the props. They yield feelings and emotions in varied quantities and qualities. There are so many flavors. The crop may be very big or small or scanty or maybe nothing. Some may be hard to swallow. Some of the fruits, that is the emotions and feelings, may be hard to swallow, being sour or bitter. Some may be joyous delicacies. The yield may make him happy and victorious, or defeated and frustrated. The spiritual vines are cultivated in the Qalb, mannered by worship and prayers, that is, dhikr and salah. They are propped up with beliefs. These acts of the sadr brings out acts of faith or devotion called iman within the qalb. Iman fluctuates in quantity and quality. The reaper of iman enjoys varied flavors. Like the grapes, iman does not last long, but gives instant energy. The grapes decay, cannot be stored for a long time. But it gives instant energy. Grapes, when eaten, they give instant energy. Which means an upsurge of Rahmah, which in turn keeps crops of both gardens in good state, because the water level of the river rises and the flow is increased. The crops get the benefit of it. Its mean level needs to be maintained through regular dhikr and salah. Otherwise, iman will go. The wine sways in thankfulness with the breeze of Rahmah, bends and prostrates with the heaviness of devotion, and stands up relieved and contented. The grapes require external protection, lest it could be stolen, eaten up by animals, or attacked by insects. The dates do not have much of a covering. It's that outer coat is edible and it is delicate. Distortion of iman leads to a diseased Qalb, that is when it is attacked by insects. It causes disease or eaten partially and left like that. It is a diseased Qalb. It palms on the periphery of the worldly garden represent sturdiness or steady stature. We now switch on to the date palms on the periphery. They yield fruits of wisdom or judgment, protected within the sheath, that is the intellect. The date, like coconuts, they are within the sheaths. The fruits are protected within sheaths. That is the case with the palm trees. The spiritual palms are the result of strengthened iman. So as iman increases, it goes to the higher level. It is no more the vines, the delicate, feeble vines, but it is a strengthened tree. The spiritual palms are the result of strengthened iman. As dhikr and salah are enhanced by the sadr, the vines turn into strong palm trees of conviction, needing no prop of belief. There is no need for belief. It has transcended that state. They represent obedience and uprightness, spiritual forms. Spiritual palms represent obedience and uprightness, that is truthfulness, honesty. Iman is now protected from sheath. Now, Iman is now protected from stealth and diseases by sheets of consciousness or awareness. So the Iman, that is a fruit, gets covered by sheets. The sheets are protective coverings of consciousness or awareness. The palm fruits are termed taqwa, but are termed taqwa. It takes time to yield. It takes longer time to yield in comparison with the grapes or the Iman. But lasts long like the dates with a good shelf life. Dates can be stored for hundreds, even hundreds of years. It has very great shelf life. Taqwa entails accuracy in weighing. Taqwa is awareness, keenness, attentiveness. So one weighs everything very, very minutely. And in keeping relationships, there will be accuracy in everything, in every acts, in our relationships. It keeps the poise between the physical and the spiritual systems of knowledge untilted. So the poise is kept correct. Untilted as Rahmah connects the Qalb with the sadr and the intellect. As the intellect grows increasingly wiser, the sadr becomes increasingly obedient to it. So, sadr is the master controller. It can command anything, but when it grows, when taqwa develops, it starts obeying the intellect. The sadr becomes increasingly obedient to it. The sadr under an intellect guided by Rahmah indulges in righteous acts. The righteous deeds in turn sustain the flow of Rahmah on both the gardens and maintain taqwa. Thus the Qalb of an individual passes through the stages of 5 stages are there. 1, belief. 2, dhikr, that is recitation. It is also called bayan, that is the interaction with the scripture, the Quran. 3, obedience to the postulations in the scripture. 4, worship. 5, God consciousness or awareness or attentiveness. As he reaches the state of taqwa, he has passed 5 stages to reach the state of taqwa. The acts are righteous when the sadr is oriented towards the nafs, which means spiritual inclination. What are righteous deeds? We will see. Senses are likened to senseless browsing gods. So the senses are likened to the senseless browsing goats, sheep. They browse indiscriminately, unmindful of whether they are eatable or risk means food, or harmful or poisonous substance. Any plant it may eat and may cause problem to it. It may either die, it may even die. It is the responsibility of the sadr. It is the responsibility of the sadr or mind to exercise control over the flock, acting as a good shepherd. The sadr is required to promote obligatory acts, that is, acts for, and bar forbidden ones, that is, haram things. Acts of haram pertaining to body, senses, mind and brain eventually train the Qalb of Rahmah, and hence the nafs loses its capacity to lead. The sadr should refrain the senses from straying into someone else's field. It can go here anywhere. The senses may stray into someone's field, as does the goats. This act is adultery, causing corruption on land. This leads to adultery in our sense, but in the Quranic sense, even seeing, lusting after is adultery. The shepherd should see that the flock are drunk pure water after feeding them. They then rest under shades, chewing the cud. Chewing cud represents contemplation of one's acts during rest time, leading to habitualization. Habits are thus formed. Sometimes it leads to even addiction. The god that is drunk with saltish water may not show liking for pure water. Pure water is worldly Rahmah, alcohol is saltish water. That's an example. Let the flock that is drunk with pure water, after being fed with a pure food, the senses are to be watered with Rahmah so that they become guided and corrected by contemplation. They habitualize righteous deeds. We will, inshallah, in the next session see what does grain cultivation imply. That a farmer had grapes, dates, and then a field of grain in both the gardens. We will see its implication in the next episode.